Shalom, kids! Welcome to your Wednesday Word Now with Miss Emily Ann. We are going to pick up where we left off in Exodus. We're going to pick up at Exodus 14. If you remember, or if you missed last week, we left you on a little bit of a cliffhanger because we left off with the Exodus, aptly named. And that's when they were leaving Egypt. There was an Exodus. And the Egyptians were following them. You can see this giant cloud of dust is where all the horses were following them. And they were up against water. They had nowhere to go. And they were fearful that they had left Egypt just to die in the desert. And they asked Moses, "Dude, why'd we do this? This seems pointless. We're just going to die here." But no. Because you see, they're the chosen people. And this was God's plan. He's not going to have it work out real bad. He's going to have it work out good. So, work out well if you like grammar. So, we have crossing the Red Sea. Now, if you've been in church for a while, this is a very popular story for VBS because it's cool. A lot of stuff happens. And I think we all know we've pretended to be Moses a time or two. Part of the Red Sea. Just for funsies. But he did it for real skis. So, we have Exodus 14. The people wrung their hands in fear as the dust thrown up by the Egyptian army grew nearer and nearer, but Moses did not give up his faith in God and stood firm. "God will look after us," he said confidently, "and he will crush our enemy." Then God told Moses to raise his staff and stretch out his hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites could go through the sea on dry ground. The column of cloud moved between the Hebrews and the Egyptians so that the Egyptians could not see what was happening. Moses stood before the sea and raised his hand, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned the seabed into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and a wall on their left. And you can see, if you look really closely, there's even little like fishies in the water. That kind of looks like a shark or a dolphin. I kind of doubt it was a shark, because I don't think it was saltwater. Some kind of fishy. But the whole sea just... and they could go right through. And now... drowned. Not the Hebrews. They're the good guys. They win. Drowned. So we have Exodus 14 through 15. The Egyptians were hard on the heels of the Hebrews and without hesitation followed them into the sea along the path that God had made. But God struck them with confusion so that the wheels of the chariots came off. Everywhere there was chaos. Then he closed the waters together and the Egyptians were all swept under the water. Of that mighty army there were no survivors, not one horse, not one soldier. Oh, horsey. I get it though. And the people of Israel, safe on the other shore of the Red Sea, were filled with gratitude and relief and sang and danced in their joy, and they knew that their God was both mighty and merciful, and they praised him greatly. So next, we have the Hebrews kind of going out in the desert to find their new home. And they had a little bit of a difficult time because they were traveling and homeless, and it is hard to find shelter and food and water. So, food and water in the desert is the name of this story. And you can see kind of little tents, little camps, just temporary housing for people who are traveling. So this is Exodus 15 through 17. It says, Moses led his people into the hot, dry desert. For 3 days they didn't find a drop of water. Ooh. And when they at last did, it was too bitter to drink. They forgot what God had done for them and began to complain angrily. God helped Moses make the water drinkable, but they had to travel onward, and soon they began to complain again. Either we shall die of thirst or of starvation, they wailed. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to die? Once again, God helped his people. In the evenings, the quail would come into the camp, and in the morning, the ground would be covered with white flakes that tasted like wafers made with honey, which they called manna. For all the time that they were in the desert, God provided quail and manna for them. Once when God told Moses to take his staff and strike a rock, from the rock flowed good, clear, fresh drinking water. The people of Israel wandered through the desert for many years, and the Lord gave them food and water. You can see all the burns on the ground and everything. Now, this is going to bring us to our Hebrew word of the week. Hebrew word of the week. So you can see in the story when the Hebrew people were complaining about not having food and water, they didn't really do what they were supposed to do, which is ask God for what they needed. What they did was just complain that they didn't have it. Complaining about things doesn't often change them. You kind of want to do something to fix it or ask God to help you. Just complaining doesn't get you anywhere. Moses was great, and he asked God for help in these cases. And what he probably said when he was asking for help was please. Because when you say please, people are more likely to help you. And you show humility that you're asking, please, out of the goodness of your heart, would you do this for me? You're not asking from a place of thinking, of course they'll do it for me, I deserve it. You're saying, please, I really need it. So when the Hebrew people, or when Moses asked God for something, they probably used the Hebrew word for please, which is bevakasha. Bevakasha. Bevakasha, Yahweh. Please, God. Bevakasha. And then when God provides, they use last week's Hebrew word of the week, which is Toda. Toda, Yahweh. Thank you for providing. Bevakasha. Please help. So, next time we ask for something, we should use bevakasha or please if we're speaking to an English speaker. Because it's nice. All right. Now, this story is one of the most popular in the whole Bible. It's a really important one to know because pretty much gives you the gist of it. The 10 Commandments. So this is Exodus 19 through 20. And this is some really good stuff in the Bible if you want to read it in the not picture Bible when you're a little bit older. Okay. Whoa. Let's scooch to where you can see it because it's important that you see it. Okay. Alrighty. Moses led the people to Mount Sinai. There God spoke to Moses and told him that if the people would honor and obey him, he would always be with them. The elders agreed to do everything the Lord had told them. Then God told Moses that in 3 days he would appear to them on Mount Sinai. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder and lightning, with a thick cloud over the mountain and a loud trumpet blast. The people trembled and waited at the foot of the mountain. Then God called Moses to the top of it and spoke to him, saying, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make any false idols. You shall not misuse my name. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Remember we learned the word Sabbath earlier. It's a day of rest. Honor your father and your mother. Not father. That's not a word. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not tell lies. You shall not envy anything that belongs to your neighbor. Moses told the people what God had commanded, and they promised to obey. And that is the end of this week. So I will see you guys next week. Hope you learned something. Hej, trout.